The story starts with a young man named Suho texting his mother. Like most people his age, Suho likes to hang out with his friends, but he has to go to a birthday party today even though he doesn't want to. He accidentally runs into someone and gets yelled at by a stranger. Suho says he's sorry, but he's disgusted with himself for being embarrassed. Suho tries to think about what's going on right now, but all of a sudden, a bolt of lightning hits the city and goes right through it. This causes a lot of damage and chaos everywhere. But that was just the beginning. Soon, the whole sky was full of lightning, ready to destroy the whole city, and it happened so quickly that Suho doesn't know what's going on. At the moment, he can only see people dying everywhere. He runs as fast as he can to try to get away, but all of a sudden he sees a truck coming right at him. Suho wakes up in a completely different world. To his surprise, he doesn't know where he is, because all he can see is the night sky, 2 moons, and some creatures he's never seen before. He's also naked. He doesn't know how he got here or who brought him. There are many questions but no answers. But before he could figure out what was going on, a bear was ready to kill him. But Suho once again stays alive because of a miracle. This time, the wolves killed the bear in a cruel way, which Suho had never seen before in his life. Even though it's all true, he can't believe what he's seeing. It seems too good to be true. It doesn't really matter because the only thing that matters is to stay alive. So Suho runs as quickly as he can. He doesn't know where he'll end up, but he knows he has to run. Out of nowhere, he hears a voice tell him that his constitution has grown by 1. He is surprised by the voices, which make him trip and fall. As he tries to get up, his body tells him it's hungry. He is surrounded by fruits, but he doesn't believe that they are real. He can't be sure about anything because it's not his world. He tries to stop himself, but then he bites into it, so he couldn't eat it. He heard something. The forest is wild, so every sound is a warning for him. Behind the grass, there is someone who wants to kill Suho, but before he could move an inch, a giant snake moved first. The snake's job is to kill Suho. But because of how things go, the predator ends up being eaten by an animal that is higher on the food chain. In the past couple of minutes, Suho came very close to dying twice in this strange place. He doesn't know how long he will be able to stay here. After all, miracles can't happen every time, so he has to learn skills and knowledge to survive. Every day in this place is a competition, and only the worthy will make it through. After 66 days, Suho is still alive, but he is barely holding on because a pack of wolves is always behind him. He thinks they won't stop following him as long as he's still alive. He is aware that this is now his life, so the only smart thing to do is to keep improving himself. A year has passed, and Su has changed a lot since the first day. Now that he can lift heavy things, he is able to get a banana, which will be his food for the day. But we still haven't left him alone, especially a white one who can't stop looking at him. He eats the banana, but then he feels something, and when he turns around, he sees a gorilla marching toward him. Now they are fighting to the death. But Suho has learned a lot in the last year, so he won't need a miracle to save himself this time. The gorilla falls out of the tree because it is so big. After falling down, a gorilla realizes it almost killed a wolf, which is now out to get it back. The gorilla doesn't like it when a weaker animal stands up, just like any other animal that hunts in the wild. The gorilla screams at the wolf to scare it away, but the wolf is ready to run. The gorilla attacks the wolf, but that wasn't enough to kill it, so it has to try again. But before that, Suho steps in and stabs the gorillas. I'm making it even crazier than before. The wolf runs away, but Suho can't. Now he has to face a gorilla that is angrier than ever and ready to kill him. But before that happens, Suho wakes up in the real world with the doctors around him. He tells them his story and tries to explain his crazy experiences. Even though doctors don't really believe his story about 2 moons and huge creatures, they are interested in the story because of something about it. The doctor asked him why he tried to fight the gorilla, even though he knew he couldn't handle it. But Suho tells them how fighting works and why. No matter where you go, you can't get stronger or more powerful without beating someone stronger. The gorilla is ready to kill Suho, but to his surprise, the white wolf attacks the gorilla to save him. He doesn't want to believe that the same animal that tried to kill him a year ago is now trying to save him, even if it means giving up his own life. The whole group attacks the gorilla right away, which surprises Suho because the wolves who wanted to kill him are now saving him. He falls unconscious. But the wolves don't come after the puppy because it was the king's son. The wolf remembers what he did for him, and as time goes on, enemies become friends. Suho joined the group of wolves, and they treated him like he was one of them. Suho no longer feels lonely. Even though they were animals, they were the first ones to accept him. We're now in Suho's 31st year, and he's changed a lot from what he used to be. He used to be a scared little boy, but now he's a fierce warrior who isn't afraid to kill big snakes. He's also willing to do anything for his family, the wolves. He hunts a boar with them, which wasn't hard for them after a few years. But Su can't find another person in this strange world who is like him. He made many new friends who were wolves, but he also lost a lot of them. At first, he thought he wouldn't last a day in this wild place, but now he's stronger than ever and still standing. Even after hundreds of years, his story is still the most interesting thing the Doctor has ever heard, because no human can live for 500 years and become king of the wolves. The doctors then asked him the most important question, which was how he was able to come back. Suho then tells the story of how he started a war with the gorillas over Moonlight Hill. The wolves, led by Suho, were ready to claim the biggest victory of their lives. As soon as the battle started, people started killing each other brutally. Suho knew that the king gorilla was his target. He knew that if he killed it, everything would end right away. So he went straight for it. Just as Suho was about to claim victory, something strange happened, and he disappeared from Earth. We see some guys walking around an abandoned and destroyed city, looking for something. Suddenly, their device tells them that something is happening, which might be what they're looking for, and everyone starts to run away because the portal is opening. A girl holding a sword gets ready to fight anyone who comes through the portal. When the portal opens, Suho is there. The huge amount of energy around him shows that a portal has opened. The portal closes itself in a matter of seconds, leaving Suho lying naked on the ground. No one thinks it's strange because they call him just another returner. And when Suho opened his eyes, the next time, he was in a hospital with a doctor who recorded his story for the Awakened Bureau. He tells Suho that he is fine and will be released in a few days. The doctor starts to leave, but Suho stops him. When the doctor asks him what's wrong, Suho smiles and thanks him for being the first person he talked to in 1,000 years. The doctor smiles back and says that his advice will be very useful. On the other hand, at Bureau headquarters, we see the same girl who almost killed Suho, talking with her boss about a rare F-rank patient who is none other than Suho. The boss tells you that if you had been a regular patient, the government would have given you benefits. The girl is curious about how she was able to go through a portal. The chief tells her that it could have just been luck. He then shows the report that the doctors who talked to Suho wrote. The report makes it clear that Suho acts like a wolf and is suffering from PTSD, which is common among first responders. The girl decides to go to the hospital in person to give this report because she wants to confirm something about him. Suho can't stop thinking about the strange world he lived in for 1,000 years and his sudden return to Earth. Even though he has been back for about 2 weeks, he is still trying to pull himself together. He wants to go back with his friends to that beautiful, wild world. He wants to live that dangerous, exciting life again, but he liked being there at the end of the day. The nurse comes in and tells him it's time for lunch. He's hungry, so he puts off his deep thoughts and goes to get something to eat. When he wakes up, a girl from the bureau comes in and finds him in a very strange position. The girl says her name is Choi Soo-young-soo. With the help of her blonde hair, Choi Soo-young-soo can immediately smell her and figure out who she is. He can remember seeing her somewhere. She then tells him that she was the first person he saw when he came back from the portal. She also remembers the predatory look in his eyes when he came back. But now he is a totally different person. He doesn't seem as dangerous as before. Suho then asks her what the bureau that has woken up is. She says that it's an organization that helps people like Suho get back into society after being away. She then asks him to sign a form giving permission to share information. But Suho is more interested in the pen than the form itself. Even after 1,000 years, he is still holding a pen. Even as he was drawing wolves on it, he forgot what to do with it. Even though she knows he is a student, this behavior bothers Soo-young, and she can't stand it. She asked him if he could learn how to draw, but he told her that he already knew how. She was ready for that answer. But then she asked him what he learned there. Suho says that there was no magic or sorcery in that world. Instead, people survived by being strong and smart. Choi is sad because she thinks Suho spent 10 years there doing nothing useful. He then tries to explain that he wasn't there for 10 years, but for thousands of years. But she reminds him that he went missing in 2015 and has just come back in 2025. She then gives him his Awakened ID card, which has information about him that is personal and important. She also suggests that he see his family as soon as possible after hearing about them. Suho finds a new reason to live. He thought his family had died long ago, but now that they are still alive, he can see them again. Suho also realizes that even though he has his real family back, he has lost his forest family, with whom he lived for thousands of years and with whom he probably won't see again. He looks at the report and sees that his father and mother both died on that day. Only his brother John is still alive. He gets out of bed right away and runs to see the doctor. Suho asks the doctor for a favor, and the doctor replies, "What can I do to help?" He then tells the doctor that his little brother is still alive and that he needs to see him right away. The doctor then tries to calm him down because, after all, he isn't ready to rejoin society, even though he's only been back for 2 weeks. Suho wasn't in the mood to listen to advice. He told the doctor in his harsh voice that he wasn't asking for permission, but that he was telling him to figure out how not to bother him anymore. He says he'll help, but there's one catch. Later, we see Suho leaving the hospital in a taxi. Dr. Baldy, as Sue calls him, tells the taxi driver about Suho's condition. Suho goes out while a doctor and his nurse keep an eye on him. Then she asks the doctor why he is being so kind. After all, the doctor paid for all of his medical bills, bought him new clothes, and even got him a taxi. What's the point of a dirty rag like him? The doctor tells her that Suho might be a Frankenstein and that the government doesn't care about him. But his story is still much more interesting than any other story he has ever heard. The doctor still wants to hear his story and learn more about what he did and what happened to him in that strange place. When they get to the doctor's office again, he asks the nurse to fix the broken handle, and she asks him, to his surprise, how it broke. Suho was the one who made this happen. He went back to the normal world, but he might still have the strength he gained over 1,000 years. This is important for the doctor to know because it could show how true the story is. Even though this is the second time the door handle is broken, it's not a big deal. From the opposite side, Suho is stuck in traffic when he hears on the radio that monsters have attacked the city. The monsters were destroying a lot of things as they ran through the city. The forces were sent by the defense ministry, and the situation is now under control. They were able to kill the monster, but some people died in the process. Then the radio host talks about the SBFC Championship, which is a tournament between the Quakers to see who is the best. The Russian bear is up against the world rank of 48 beyond Horizon, and the winner will play the current number 1 from Japan. Suho finds it interesting, but he doesn't know what it's all about. The driver seems to be looking forward to it, like it's something he does all the time. Suho remembers that the doctor told him the world had changed a lot, but he didn't expect something this big. The driver then says that he wants to start hunting, but he's not awakened. So he's stuck with his boring job. Suho asks him what he's talking about since there are no hunting grounds in Seoul. The driver thinks it's stupid, but he didn't know Suho hadn't been around for 10 years. Suho asked him to tell him everything about it, and the driver, who was bored, said that the story goes back 10 years, when a door to a different world opened not just in Korea, but all over the world. That bad day is called the Day of the Great Disaster. On that day, the Earth became connected to many other worlds, and monsters attacked the Earth. It was so bad that 10 of all people on Earth died in just one day. Every country's government sent out armies to fight these monsters, but the armies had no chance against their strength. People who went missing during the Great Disaster were later called the Awakeness, and they were given permission to be hired guns. For money, the job was to kill these monsters. Slowly, this became a full-time job, and mercenaries started to form guilds. Without mercenaries, it became impossible to fight monsters because they were the only ones who could. Suho is very interested in the idea of a mercenary. Since in the other world, he was a powerful warrior who fought in many wars, he asked the driver how to become a mercenary. The driver laughs it off and says that normal people can't become mercenaries. Only people who are awakened can become mercenaries. And to do that, they have to pass the Awakened Us Bureau's mercenary test. Suho listens carefully to the driver because he wants to become a mercenary, but he doesn't understand why he has to take an exam. When he fought before, it wasn't his job. It was his way of life. Finally, the taxi driver takes him to the house where he was supposed to be dropped off. After 10 years, Suho can finally meet a family member there, but he is nervous before going inside. Then all of a sudden, an old woman sees him outside and starts staring at him. Suho doesn't know what's happening. So to break the silence, he asks her right away if she knows John Hall. She starts to be mean to him when she says she doesn't know him. She lets out all of her anger and tells him that no one with that name lives here. Sue, who couldn't say a word before the woman shut her window, started to wonder if it was the wrong address. Before he could leave, he heard a kid named Gunwale calling out. The young boy and the old lady talk about how moneylenders bother them every day. Suho then checks their mailbox and sees that his brother is in debt. He slowly starts to leave and starts to wonder what real power is, because the world he lived in for the last 10 years was all about strength. Now that he's back in the real world, money wins over everything because money is the real power. This makes him very determined to become a mercenary, so he goes to the Awakened Bureau. When he gets there, his application is rejected because he doesn't meet the requirements. He asks how this can be since he is a freak who just came back to Earth 2 weeks ago. The receptionist tells him that most people die when the portal opens, so they can't let anyone become a hunter. Suho can't take the test because he doesn't have enough awakened points. She suggests he join an awakening school or increase his points by hand. But until then, he can't take the test, and it gets harder for him to become a mercenary. On his way out, he sees a poster with a reward, which catches his eye. Suwon Field Goblins is written as the name of the monster. While he was in the taxi, he asked the driver why there were so many walls around the city. The driver told him that these walls surround all of Seoul City and divide it into 12 areas with many gates. The taxi driver finally drops Suho off at gate 27. He is not at all nervous or scared. Before he can get into the hunting area, military guards stop him and ask him what he's doing there. Suho only says one word in response: hunting. The guards then told him to show them his license to be a mercenary. Suho says that he didn't get any, but before they could tell him to go back, an emergency happened. A car with a monster on it came out of the hunting grounds and crashed outside. The guards then lined up and started shooting at the monster, killing it. When they look around, they see that Suho is no longer there, so they think he has left. On the other hand, Suho starts to get ready by buying things like a car and a smartphone. He will need these things to go hunting. When the sun goes down and the sky turns blue, Suho remembers many things. He then checks his physical skills and finds that he hasn't lost them. He has kept them, even though it took him 1,000 years to get them. Now that he has reached his goal of becoming a mercenary, he soon finds some monsters surrounding a single animal. He decides that now is the best time to put his skills to the test and see if he can kill monsters to protect people. Suho then attacks them with Brûlée and kills them, just like he used to do with monsters from the other world. Suddenly, a message that says "is looking for your class" pops up on the screen in front of him. All of a sudden, the many screens around Suho made it look like he was playing a game. He doesn't know what's going on or why there's a system error. The monsters attack him because they think he's not paying attention, but this is their biggest mistake because he kills them all easily. Another message says "system error. Transferring druid failed to reset stats." Suho doesn't know what he did wrong, but then he remembers that he used to see these messages in the other world. But after a while, when his physical skills were the best they could be, he stopped leveling up. Suho didn't think this system would be on Earth, and then he gets an achievement. Suho had never achieved anything before, and he thinks this is his awakening. He has a total of 7 points, which he can use to buy things. Suho decides to use these points, and out of nowhere, bread and water appear in front of him. Then he sees that the dog he just saved is dying, but the puppy can't tell. When the dog dies in front of him, he feels sorry for it and asks him to take care of the puppy. Suho then looks into the innocent eyes of the puppy, whose mother had just died, and decides to take it as his companion. Suho then sees that he has killed a total of 7 monsters. The night passes, and in the morning, Suho and the puppy pay their final respects to the female doctor at gate 27, where everyone is waiting for it to open. And all of a sudden, Suho shows up with the monsters he's killed. Even the guards who doubted his ability are now surprised. How could someone kill them all so carelessly and bring their bodies here? Suho goes to the counter to get his money. He gets paid for killing goblins and gathering blood crystals. He gets $2,100 in cash because he doesn't have an account yet, and the receptionist suggests that he sign up. Suho is curious about the blood crystals, so he asks a receptionist about them. She tells him that they were inside the goblins and can be sold for $200 each. Suho thinks this is a good deal because now he can easily make money doing what he does best, which is hunting. After that, we see a man in a store talking to the shop owner about his new job as a truck driver. This man is Junho's brother, and the shop owner is happy for him because his new job will help him deal with his money problems. On his way back, John Doe meets Money and beats him to the ground. They asked him where he was because they couldn't find him at his house. They beat him up because he hasn't paid back the money he borrowed from John. John then gives him $240 for the month's principal and interest. But the moneylender doesn't like this and hits him again because, according to him, he still hasn't paid back enough. John starts to cry because he feels helpless and asks for forgiveness. He also promises to give back all the money within the time limit, but they keep beating him up until they hear a voice telling him to stop. They all look in the direction the boys came from and see Suhu marching towards them in his most angry mood. John recognizes his brother right away, but Suhu keeps walking toward them with anger in his eyes. John gets down and asks Park John if he's really his brother to make sure, and then we see a flashback to before the grave disaster. Even in the story about the past, it doesn't change. Some people at school are beating up John Do. He's still helpless, but he sees his brother nearby and calls for help. Surprisingly, Suhu doesn't even move or look back when John Doe screams for help. Maybe he doesn't believe in himself because this happened before he was a warrior in the wild. On the day of the big disaster, John Hall sees how useless his brother is. John Hall was watching TV when all of a sudden news of a big explosion came on. When he sees that his brother isn't home yet, he runs to the door, but his aunt and uncle stop him. When they find out that John is home and tells them about his parents, they feel a little better, but even they don't know where his parents are. He then says that Suho isn't home yet, but their building was destroyed by a huge explosion. When General gets up, he looks in the mirror and sees a big "I have a monster" staring back at him. Since then, it doesn't matter to him if his brother is still alive or dead. They never really got along well enough for it to matter. Now we turn back to the present, where Joe is still shocked after seeing his brother Suhu commonly joke about how old he has become, even though he's his younger brother. Joe, still in shock, asks why he's still alive and well, but their conversation is interrupted by the moneylender, who believes that both of them are mentally ill. This annoys Suho, and he can't stand someone insulting his brother anymore, so he grabs his head and smashes it to the ground. This showed Janelle his newfound strength, which she had never seen before. The second one tries to fight him, but Suho stops his kick in midair and snaps his leg. This was a horrible sight for the third one to see, so he starts to beg for mercy and says he didn't even touch his brother. Suhu then gives him all of his money, which he earned by hunting monsters. The moneylender gets his money, and they both start to leave. When they get to Joe's place, Suhu runs into the same old lady who told him to leave in a rude way, but this time she acts differently because she knows that he is his brother John. They go inside, where John shows Suhu his sleeping son, Gan-woo. He tells him that his son has become his top priority and that he will do anything for him. When Suhu asks where the kid's mother is, John tells him that she left the family to live alone. He blames himself for this because he wasn't able to give Suhu enough money because of his financial problems. Suhu then asked him for a drink so they could sit down and talk. After all, John has a lot to say, and the fact that he always thought Suhu died on the day of the disaster and is now coming back as an awakening is probably the craziest thing that happened. Suhu then helps him figure out how much debt he has. He finds out that it's $50,000, and John tells him not to worry about it because he just got a new job and can pay off all of his debt. Sue asks what does he do for a living, so John Doe tells him that he now works at a store. Suhu has a thought, so he asked him who owns the truck he uses. The general told him that he doesn't own that truck, but that it belonged to landowner Granny's son, who died in the Great Disaster. Now, she takes care of his son because she thinks of him as her own. As they talked about guns, we woke up. To his surprise, he found a dog next to him, which made him feel better right away. Even more happy, he sees that his dad has come back. When he asked John how about Suhu, he found out that John Hao is his uncle. He says hello and asks nicely if he can play with Suho's dog. Suhu smiles and says yes, which makes Gumbo happy because he's always wanted a dog, but his family couldn't afford one. Suhu then tells his brother about his idea. He tells him that he could work with him and that they could make a lot of money together, but they would need Janos' truck. When John asks him what he is thinking about, Soho tells him about hunting monsters. The next day, Suhu goes to the Awakener Bureau, tells them that he leveled up in just one day. This is a surprise to them. Then the receptionist gives him a smartphone called the X-Phone 50 and tells him to download the Awakener Bureau app to find out the latest news about the mercenary exam and when it will be held. She also tells him that they are having trouble with the stat screens since Suhu asked her about it in a strange way. Suhu sees that he is still on level 1, which explains why he was feeling weak now that he has everything he needs. He is ready to get his strength back and hunt monsters. Suhu then calls his brother John to tell him what happened. John is happy for him that he is finally a full-fledged mercenary and wishes him luck on the exam. He tells him that he will be there when his job is done. Suhu doesn't want to waste any time. so he told him to come right away so they can go monster hunting for dead. John then tells her that it's way too early for that because he's just a weird Suhu and doesn't like excuses, so he puts the phone down. John Hill sees that his brother has changed a lot. It's not the same week when John, who used to know a lot about Suho, starts looking for the closest place to hunt. A lot of cars are waiting to get into the hunting ground. Because hunting monsters is hard, no one is ever alone with their teams. We see a group of 5 people getting ready to go hunting. 3 of them are scared, even though we woke them up, but the 2 in front are ready to go. They tried to calm down their teammates, but then Suhu walked in. The person at the front desk asks for his awakened ID, lets him in, and tells him not to go into dungeons. Everyone can see that Suhu is walking around without any weapons or equipment, as if monsters don't bother him at all. The police guards talk about what Suhos has done, such as killing 7 goblins at Gate 27. The group we met earlier found Suho interesting, so they decided to follow him. When they got to the hunting grounds, though, they lost sight of him. Suhu starts running sprints to see what he can do. He wants to test himself in a fight to see how far he can go. Suddenly, he hears a lot of voices, and when he turns around, he sees 2 groups of people fighting with swords and brutally cutting each other's limb. Suhu sees that there are too many of them and that it will take a long time to kill them all, so he decides not to go after them and instead looks for someone with a higher bounty. Lucky for him, a man named Joy Groshek shows up with a $40,000 reward. Suhu was about to leave, but when he heard $40,000, he stopped. He wonders how strong someone has to be to have a bounty of $40,000 on their head. People who are fighting with swords start to run away because they're happy to see him. Choi then challenges the 3 people who were trying to get his attention to a fight, but they know they have no chance against the Joy. They start to bargain and offer everything if he lets them go, but Joy turns down their offer because he doesn't like letting people go. Just as Troy was about to crush them, Suho came out of nowhere and stood in front of Troy without showing any fear. Everyone was shocked because this idiot came out of nowhere and was standing in front of Troy without showing any sign of fear. Choi asks him who he is and why he is there. Choi gets angry and asks again who he is. Suho says someone who needs money. Everyone starts to worry about him because no one fights a C ranker for such reasons, and Suho seems like a kid to them. Joy tells him that this is the worst choice he has ever made, and that he would have been better off if he had just stayed away. Suho doesn't even flinch, but all of a sudden he feels like his body has frozen and he can't move. Joy tells him that he made a mistake by looking into his eyes for more than 5 seconds and that he can use his powers on him. He then tells his men to break every bone in his body and sue him. But before that, Suho punches him, and no one, not even Choice, can figure out how he did it because no one can escape Choice's power. When Joy looks at Ku's face, he sees something that really scares him. He sees Ku's most menacing and evil look, the look of someone who is ready to kill him brutally. And he realizes that he has just made the biggest mistake of his life and will now die because of it. Suho almost hits him, but at the last second, Shoei uses his ability to bind Suho. He feels a little better and thinks the threat is over. He tells Suho that he knows he is strong, but he can beat him. Joy gets his knife and uses it to stab him, but Suho gets out of it again and kicks him far away. He tells Joy that he can't do anything besides use his mind power, which doesn't help him against Suho. The other 3 think it's amazing that someone was able to beat Choice so easily. Suho is then surrounded by Choice men whose swords are stained with the blood of people they've killed. When Sue asks them if they want to fight, the men realize that this is their only chance to live because they can't beat him. Then they all beg for forgiveness and tell him that there's no reward on their heads, so he can't use his strength to make them work for him. And now they can just run away. Sue asks for a rope to tie up his Tui, and one of the 3 guys gives it to him. He is angry that his men betrayed him and calls them traitors. They say that they have always hated him and that this is their chance to get away. Joy figures out that he can't do everything by himself, so he tries to convince Suho to let him go. He tells Suho that if he lets him go, he will do everything he can to make Suho king of the city. He thinks Suho will agree to his terms, but Suho kicks him so hard that he passes out. Suho asks them to choose men again for their bounty, but they keep telling him that they are useless and that killing them won't help. But the 3 hunters tell Suho that every single one of Choi's men is a criminal with a bounty on their head. Suho decides to go after them to make some extra money. Later, the 3 hunters help Suho with their car. When they thanked him, he told them he wasn't there to help them at all. He then asked them what their special power was. The leader said that after waking up, he became a swordsman and learned some other skills from books. Suho was surprised that you could learn skills from books, so he decided to learn more from them. They don't understand how Suho can be so strong but not know about the skill books. Just to find out, he asks you what level he is, and when he says he's just a F ranker, everyone is shocked because how could a rookie F ranker hunt down a C ranker hunt down a C ranker? Suho then asks them about the portal, and they tell him it's a level 1 dungeon, and only well-known and strong mercenaries are allowed to go there. They wanted to go there, but they didn't have enough strength to do so. Then Suho asked them what the favor was. They wanted to ask him because they thought he could help them. Then we see Captain King and his team come out of a portal feeling frustrated. His team is badly hurt, which makes him angry because he doesn't want to work with amateurs and whiners. He tells them to stop crying like babies. He then says that he will get them fired because the Awakened Bureau doesn't need idiots who can't even protect themselves. Then his partner calms him down and tells him how the system works now. Rich and powerful parents use their power to turn their kids into hunters. They pay professional mercenaries to kill monsters on their kids' behalf and train them, while the kid uses his parents' money to become a mercenary. He still doesn't learn anything useful and is still a burden on his teammates. Captain thinks it's unfair that rich people can get by with less work and time, even in this profession. Normal people have to deal with the results of their actions. Captain King then asks the guards if anything happened today, and he finds out that someone delivered. When a C Raider is defeated, 10 Rangers, including a C-rank boss named Joy, can be shot. So he asks which high-ranking mercenary did it. The guards then told him that it was a high-ranking person who did it, but a new F-ranker. That fighter was so strong that he broke multiple ribs of Joy, which is hard to do because of his choice ability. Kong remembers right away that Suho thinks he's to blame for everything. He asked the guard right away where this F was going. The last time they saw him was when he went through the portal, the guards told him. He already knew enough about him. So Captain Kang runs to the portal because he wants to see for himself how strong Suho is. Captain Kang then asks the person running the portal through which door the Suho came in. Suho has already gone through the portal with new clothes, which he likes. He finds out that because of dimensional energy, normal clothes can't go through portals, but these special clothes can't. They are expensive, but they do the job. Suho then notices something different. He then asks what it is. His partner tells him that hunters can get into 38 different dungeons through doors or paths. The door they just used was number 24. All of a sudden, the door is gone, and Suho wants to know what happened. He finds out that the door won't come back until the dungeon is cleared. Then Suho asks him what it means to clear a dungeon. Does it mean killing a monster? If so, that would take a long time, and Suho is the last person who wants to spend so much time there. His partner tells him that all they have to do to open the door is kill the strongest one. This makes Suho more excited because he wants to hunt down the strongest. Then he rushes to find the strongest monster because he can't wait to kill it. Suho's partner, on the other hand, knows something is wrong because Suho isn't good at tracking. Even if he gets lost, so what? If that happens, the dimension will destroy them both. He knows that this is a big deal, so he sets out to find him. Then we see monsters from that world. They are big and mean, and they want to kill something. They heard a voice, and before any of them could turn around, Suho kicked one of them to death. He then started killing everyone brutally and without pity. After he stabs them, he finds one blood crystal that he can sell for money. He leaves so he can find the big one. But when his partner gets there, he sees a lot of dead goblins, and it looks like a massacre. Suho earns skill points by killing so many goblins that he can now use them to learn skills. He has a lot of choices but decides to call on the tree spirit. The tree spirits call Suho. He remembers this from his time in another world. He then tells the tree spirit to go find more goblins. Because trees and grass are all connected, the tree spirits can talk to him through them. He then checks that screen and sees that he has moved up a level. The number of things he's done is 345. Then he sees that he can search and track, which will help him hunt. He spends his last point on these two skills because he knows how important they are. He starts to mark the whole area with the search skill, and then he uses the tracking skill to find something that isn't a goblin. It's something big and strong, making it the perfect target for him right away. When he gets to the battle site, he sees that his partner is already fighting the monster, but is having trouble getting the upper hand. Suho yells at him because he told him to stay at the door and not go hunting alone. He tells Suho that he isn't hunting, but is instead being hunted. The monster doesn't care about what they are saying. It only wants to kill. He tries to stab, but Suho kicks him away before he can get back up. Suho kicks it so hard that it bleeds all over. Suho doesn't give it a chance to run away or fight back. He hits it over and over until he finally kills it. Suho levels up and gets 120 points right away, but his partner is still shocked because he has probably never seen a hunter be so cruel. Suho then asks his partner if the door will open now, since he doesn't mind hunting someone stronger. But this kill was enough to open the door. Since their job was done, they both went back through the portal, and everyone was surprised to see them. One guard remembers that Captain King asked him to let him know if that farrier came back. Then Unum says he has to go because he needs to meet with his team. He also thinks he will thank him one more time for all the help he has given. After getting dressed, when Suho goes outside, he meets Captain King, who is excited to see him. Captain King asks Suho if he is Park Suho and introduces himself as Captain Kang Min Yok, the captain of the 27th combat team of the Schiller Guild. He then asks Suho for a few minutes, and they go to a bar to talk in private. The king then offers Suho the chance to join the Scylla Guild and promises him a good place to work. Suho says no right away, which makes Kang mad, but he tries to hide it. He then asks Yu if he is part of another guild, and if he is, they will send an official offer to his guild. Suho says again that he doesn't have a guild and is just working alone. The king then tries to convince him by telling him that the Scylla Guild is ranked 4th and is one of the strongest in the world. He tries to convince Suho that joining the guild will help him in many ways. But Suho turns him down again because he can't stand working for someone else when he knows he's the best. And the best should be the king, not a subordinate. King doesn't like the way he acts, but he knows there's nothing else he can do right now to change his mind. John Hill and his son were not there when Suho got back home. He thinks that they might spend some time together as father and son, which would be good for them. He then goes to the roof and lies down to rest. Granny told him to stop being lazy because he was young and could work. Suho then started helping the grandmother. She then asked him again if he was really John's older brother because she thinks he's getting older backwards. Suho jokes that he didn't age backward. Instead, he aged forward. Even though Granny doesn't understand it, she believes it because the world has changed so much in the last 10 years. She then tells him to take care of himself because he now has a family to love and care for. And losing a family member is the worst thing that can happen. Suho tells her that he can't be killed, but she tells him that people who say things like that are the first ones to die. When John and One Gun come back, they ask Granny where Suho is. She tells them that he is upstairs waiting for them. When he asks what's in the envelope, Suho gives him a real one. When he asks what's inside, Sue tells him it's $50,000 so he can pay off all of his debts. At first, Suho is shocked and won't take the money because he thinks he won't be able to pay it back. He starts crying because he never thought he'd see this day. But Suho tells him to stop crying and thank God for saving his life. He then leaves to pay off all of his debts. Suho checks his screen while Gun plays with the dog and sees a message that says the target is following. Suho doesn't know what this means about guns. Then we asked him what they were going to call the dog. Suho let him choose, and he said Vika. Suho agreed. He also sees BQ's level on the screen that shows his stats. Then Suho starts to play with them both. And just like that, the evening has gone by. When the journalist's truck comes back, they go downstairs to meet him. But to their surprise, they see John Hill covered in blood and struggling to walk. He falls to the ground when no one tries to wake him up. And Suho starts to wonder what happened to his brother after that. We see a group of people in an office. They were talking about the odds for betting on the SBF championship tournament when they heard a loud noise outside. When the door opens, one of the bad guys tells them they're in trouble, and then he's grabbed from behind. Someone is beating up all the crowds, and when they see two angry eyes in the dark, they start to wonder who it is. Those were Suho's eyes, and he then picked up a bench with one hand and threw it at the monk. He does a lot of damage here, and everyone gets hurt a lot. Then he moves slowly toward the boss, who still has no idea what's going on. Suho then asks him if he's Kim Jong. He says, yes, that's my Kim. Suho tells him he's here to pay off a debt. Kim tells him that the government won't like it if he attacks them if he wakes up. Suho doesn't care that he told him not to, so he hits him so hard that his teeth fall out. He keeps hitting him and tells him that he shouldn't have gone too far by beating up his brother. Then they all ask Suho for forgiveness and promise not to bother Junho again. Suho left the place right away, but this still makes the boss mad. He tells his employees that he knows powerful people and will definitely get his own back. On the other hand, Captain Kang shows his boss, Mr. Park Suho, his profile when he gets to the guild headquarters. He tells them that he is the best person they could get. But when they both tried to learn more about him, a message that said access denied popped up. Pork finds that both shocking and interesting. So they both hacked into the system to look at his profile. When they look at his stats, they are impressed and can't believe he's only a rookie. Kaelen says they should do everything to get this guy, but his boss thinks he's not a mercenary. They look into it and find that he hasn't been seen for 10 years. This makes them think that he might be a government spy. Kings keeps trying to persuade Park, but Park says it's a waste of time to try to get something they can't get. Kang then only wants to hear about him once a week, but it's been turned down again. Suho goes to the hospital to see his brother John, who reminds him that the mercenary exam is tomorrow. Suho tells him that he is aware of that and is ready for it. But he doesn't like the idea of working for someone else because he used to be the king of the jungle. John then tells him that he can look for some high-ranking guilds for him. But Suho doesn't want to join because he wants to start his own guild. Then we see Sue again at the headquarters of the Awakener Bureau. Her boss tells her off because there have been 2 outbreaks in her area. She tells him she's doing the best she can. He then gives her a letter which makes her angry because it's another job offer and she has to go to an exam. Her boss tells her not to turn down too many people at the test center, like she always does. There are a lot of people who are ready to take the test. We also see a guy live streaming the whole thing until Suho crashes his stream. The Major, Kim Jong-soo, then introduces himself and tells everyone that they will be assigned to one of 21 supervisors. Everyone starts to wish for a good supervisor, but the Major says that the assignment will be completely random and will be done through a lottery. The process starts and everyone starts to get their supervisors. Han Dong-soo and Suho get the same supervisor, number 15. Surprisingly, Su Jung is number 15. And when Suho figures out who she is, everyone starts making plans, and Suho notices that Dong-soo is sad. He asked him why he said that now, since he was very happy not long ago. He tells Suho that they're doomed because that blonde trainer is a witch and fails everyone based on her mood. Suho tells him that he's just making excuses, which angers the dogs, who then tell him to show some respect to his elders. Suho then tells him to settle things like a man and stop being a baby. Dong-soo gets angry because he thinks he's stronger, so he challenges Suho to a fight. When Su gets there, she finds that no one is there. She starts to wonder what's going on the other side, where Suho and Hang Zhao are fighting dogs in a cave. Hang Zhao keeps reminding Suho of what he's done because he thinks Suho is going to kill him. He tells Suho that he's a rising YouTube boxer, but Suho doesn't know what that means. Everyone thinks Suho is stupid, so they start cheering for Dong-soo. Dong-soo is happy because he thinks the fight will be easy. He says it as a joke that he won't pay the medical bill. Suho is ready to fight too, because he has become addicted to it. Him. Dong-soo then shows how fit and quick he is by attacking Suho. But before anything could happen, Su Jung shows up and stops the fight. She tells everyone to go back or she will fail them right away. Everyone goes back except Dong-soo and Suho. She then asks if they want to fail if they do something like that. Dong-soo starts to explain that it's not really his fault, but she quickly stops him and tells him that there's no need for explanations because one of them has to take the blame. She then tells them to keep fighting and the loser will be out of the game. So the first part of this man's argument wins. Well guys, if you liked this video and want a second part, comment below with the word Suho also. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, like the video, and most importantly, leave a comment until the next video.